Hello, you guys. It's Elizabeth from Elizabeth's Oracle. Thank you so much for tuning in today and happy holidays. We are going to talk about the sun through Capricorn for 2019 into 2020. Here are the start times for each section of this video. We've got eclipses and we have the much anticipated Saturn Pluto conjunction. I'll explain what that is and give you my best interpretation of how it might play out. Going to take a gander a little later in this video, but jump to whatever section you like. Let's look at some charts, and thank you again for tuning in. All right, and thank you for your patience with everything on here. I got a lot of notes, a lot of charts, and I do my best to edit out the paper shuffling, and I just try to edit as smoothly, but there is a lot to cover. So this is chart one. As usual, while you're getting oriented, your earth signs are in the green, your water signs are in the blue, your fire in the yellow, and your air signs are in the gray. And while you're looking at that chart, I want to give a hat tip to Dennis Haskell over at Time Life Cycles, who is the guy who's been writing all the software for Mac users who do charts for decades, and he's recently sold that endeavor. And the reason I'm thanking him for that, even though he may never see this video, is you guys, that's how I'm able to put each specific planet in a color and each sign, just to like help teach people and make it easy to see. And that's all probably going to change this year as Mac keeps updating things. That software eventually will stop working. So sad. I've been looking into new things, but they don't give me this kind of specificity. So just lots of thanks. The people in this who really are here decade after decade, that's really, saying something about their integrity and their dedication to this work. So much appreciated. So, all right, that being said, let's look at the specifics in this chart. Lower right hand section, you have all those planets in Capricorn. The sun newly moved there, Jupiter, South Node, Saturn, and Pluto. Wow. And if you go to the other green section up at the top there, that's Uranus, and it is in Taurus, another earth sign. And of course, it will be making trines to the planets in Capricorn, and it actually has been since Venus was there, and then on the 15th of December when Jupiter went through there. And so we're going to get a couple more trines to Uranus, and it will be turning direct during this cycle. So Uranus is going to be a player, and I'll show you that in the next chart as well. It's going to come into play, so just notice where that is. The other ones I want you to notice are our water signs. So the nodes are at 8 degrees, that north node at 8 degrees directly across from everything in Capricorn. That north node is in Cancer. Of course, you guys are pretty used to this now. Neptune is in Pisces. Of course, that's sextiling and supporting everything that as it goes through Capricorn, and it will be in what we call orb, within 5 degrees of the big eclipse in January. So it will be I'll give you a little heads up about that when we get to that part of this. And then, of course, we have Mars, not to be taken lightly, in Scorpio, probing, being provocative in an emotional sense. And of course, you guys know, I always just note where the moon is when the sun cycle starts, and it's also in Scorpio. So there's going to be a Scorpio aspect to what we're doing for a while into this cycle. Mars is there until January 3rd. So that's your first chart. And this cycle gets busy really quick. And so that includes chart number 2. So in chart number 2, things are very close to where they were in chart number 1, because it's just a couple of days since the sun entered Capricorn, but already our first eclipse of this sun cycle, but part of the eclipse series that we've been dealing with throughout 2019. And in this one, it's a baby moon at 4 degrees and 7 minutes, but because Uranus is within orb of it. It's not an exact trine to the moon. The moon will trine Uranus earlier in the day, but the new moon is in close proximity in a certain sense in terms of degree. So we notice that when there's a new moon. So all your things that you're wanting to put out intentions for that are of a Capricorn nature, which we'll cover in part 2, notice this time is a big Christmas moon, late Christmas Day or early on the Boxing Day for you guys in earlier time zones. I do everything in Mountain. So chart number 2, first eclipse, notice this one and think about what you are putting out in terms of big Capricorn intentions, because there's incredible support for them with this much in Capricorn. Also, the last things that I want to note about this chart is if you go down to that lower right hand side and to the left, you are going to see Mercury at the very late degrees of Sagittarius. So that means it is done with Sagittarius and getting ready to join everything in Capricorn, because we just don't have enough in Capricorn right now. Also, we have Venus in Aquarius. Forgot to mention that that's going to come into play as well. And we also have Mars, as I had mentioned, is in Scorpio, but by this chart, it's getting ready to change signs and go into Sag, and that's going to be on the 3rd of January. Now, we look at this chart, and Mercury and Mars are set to change signs. So let's move on to chart number 3, because that starts to get us into the real juice. I mean, this is an eclipse. I don't want to downplay it, but the stuff coming up after it is even so much bigger. So let's get to that. This is chart number 3. This is such a big occasion. So this week actually is going to be 2 charts because there's just so much going on. We're leading up to the second eclipse. This one is massive, and of course then the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. But for this chart, this is the chart of the eclipse, but I just want to point out a few things leading up to it. So all your planets in Capricorn are in that upper right hand area, and before we even get to that, in chronological order, because we're in the Saturn ruled sign, so we do all things chronos or chronological. So on the 6th, the sun is going to sextile Neptune. On the 8th, Mercury in Capricorn will sextile Neptune. Also on the 8th, Jupiter will conjoin the south node, which means it's obviously opposing the north node. And again, playing into the buildup to that eclipse energy. On the 9th, this is when things really, we just turn that kettle up another notch. The moon moves into Cancer, and that is what leads us to this chart, which is the full moon at 20 degrees in Cancer. Huge moon. Of course, a full moon is the moon opposing the sun, but this moon's going to then quickly go on and oppose Saturn, oppose Pluto, and the other really big thing that day, one little thing earlier that day, the sun will conjoin Mercury. Look at everything. 20 degrees, 22 degrees in this chart. So the sun and Mercury connect. And this is all in a bigger context of everything meeting up in Capricorn, aligning. So when all these forces come together, they're magnified. And then the one that you can't quite tell by looking at the chart, but trust me, this is also the day, as if an eclipse isn't big enough, this is also the day that Uranus stations direct. Huge. Again, Uranus is the shock waves. It just brings in change. It disrupts things. So for that to be happening in this context is really big. Just 2 days later, chart number 4 is the real big one that everyone's talking about that I'll describe more in part 2. This is the 12th of January, the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And of course, Mercury and the sun are right in the mix there. So it's not just a big Capricorn stellium, that it is, but these are all exact connections. So Mercury is going to connect with Saturn and Pluto. Saturn and Pluto are going to connect. The next day, the sun will connect with Pluto and then Saturn. And what you'll start to see in the charts moving forward is Saturn move ahead after it hits that exact degree, it moves ahead. So you're going to see Saturn going on and kind of paving the way in Capricorn, stirring things up and intensifying everything in Capricorn, because you guys know those late degrees bring a stronger energy of the sign. So this week is huge. And then the other little thing, there's so much going on in Capricorn that you might not notice, but I thought this was actually kind of funny. Venus there in Aquarius. I told you that would be important. What's really funny is, like, if you know a Pisces, they have this ability when it all gets too much. There's like, hi, I'm going underwater now. Like I'm out. And so what's really funny is Venus is, you can see in this chart, is in the very late degree of Aquarius, and the very next day she's like, yeah, I'm going into Pisces. So whatever's happening this week, this big week at around this time, Venus, which is how we take care of ourselves and how we value ourselves, our self-worth, amongst other things, it just goes into Pisces, which I kind of find funny. And it will actually not be able to escape, because it's going to sextile Uranus, because it will hit those early degrees. So any of these planets hitting early degrees make a connection of one kind or another to Uranus. But we all may feel like that by the end of this week too. So schedule a massage, something that's, if something intense happens, there is like an antidote, or there's a going within and into the Pisces, meditation, yoga, massage, all those kind of things. And I think it's just kind of cute. Venus is like, yeah, I'm out. Done. And then let's move on to the last chart for this section, which is Mercury entering Aquarius on the 16th, because I just want to show you, no matter, I've seen predictions across the board on this week and what a Saturn Pluto conjunction is. We'll explore some of the possibilities in part 2, but I just want to show you it will end. Things will shift. Venus goes into Pisces. Mercury then, though, does get out of the Capricorn stuff, but it goes into Aquarius, which can be lighting up that electrical kind of energy Venus just ditched. That does happen by the end of this cycle. And the last thing I want to point out before we move on to part 2, in looking at this last chart, is that, again, all the attention's on everything in Capricorn, but no matter what's going on, and again, I've seen the most dramatic, predictions out there. We'll talk about that in part 2, but we have so many points offering perspective and an ability to step back, step out of what's happening in the immediate, and to put things into a context. So, of course, the whole time, Neptune will be in Pisces, and of course, on the 13th, Venus goes into Pisces. Pisces and Neptune, of course, are very holistic. They think about things in an integral way. Where does this fit into a bigger context? Things like that. So perspective. The other thing that's going to give us perspective is Sagittarius. It sees the big picture as well. And almost the whole time we're going to have something in Sagittarius. When we start the cycle, Mercury is in Sagittarius, goes into Capricorn on the 28th of December, but very quickly on the 3rd of January, Mars picks up the torch and stays in Sagittarius for the whole rest of the Capricorn cycle. So that's, again, prompting us, provoking us to say, hey, step back, look at the big picture, and put things, again, into context. And the last one, I would argue, is the Aquarian energy that, interestingly, also is consistent throughout almost all of this cycle. So right before the sun went into Capricorn, Venus went into Aquarius on the 19th of December, and of course stays there all the way through January 13th. So Aquarius can be a little electrical overload, a little overstimulating, but again, Aquarius is visionary. It's like a forerunner kind of energy. It sees the future. Again, takes an unconventional look at things. It's an outlier and it stays detached. And that may be a handy tool for you no matter what's unfolding. And also so that you can step back and look at your plans or look at what your New Year's resolutions, business plans, career things, all this Capricorn stuff that's coming up. We get that perspective with this combination. And of course, Venus leaves Aquarius on the 13th of January, and then Mercury goes in, as I was showing you in this chart. So we will constantly have the ability to step back, look at the big picture, and hopefully however this Saturn Pluto thing and these eclipses manifest, we're able to look at our lives and go, does that make sense in terms of my big picture planning? So those are the charts. Let's delve into the substance and the hype. And, at least I'm just going to share my perspective on how I see some of these energies working. All right. Well, thank you so much for your patience and tuning in. This video is a little longer than usual, but it's such an important occurrence and time that I really wanted to do a very thorough job and yet give it to you concisely. So we'll break it down into the Capricorn thing, and then we'll describe Saturn and Pluto, and we'll talk about the eclipses and how everything's kind of coming together now. So Capricorn. This is our cardinal, initiating, prompting, pushing us. It starts a season here in the north, of course, the winter solstice. Happy winter solstice to everyone. It is Earth, so we deal with what is real, what is tangible. Its ruling planet is Saturn. We're going to describe Saturn a little bit more in a sec here. And it's symbolized by the goat or the mountain goat. Again, very sure-footed animal. So this is being rooted and here and present to the physical. And I heard somebody say a cool thing. Jupiter looks up, Sag, the bow is, the archer's bow is pointing to the horizon, and Capricorn's looking down. It's watching the ground underneath it, and you often hear the metaphor of a mountain, climbing up a mountain. You got to be very sure-footed about that and careful. It is the ruler of the 10th house. This is your public recognition. This is career. This is reputation. So when you put all that together, these are some of the associations we have with Capricorn. Because it's Saturn ruled, you get pragmatism, maturity. We deal with time. We deal sometimes with restrictions or limitations. Or we can see that as the structure to play in and actually have freedom within, because we know where the boundaries are. Longevity, responsibilities, again, determination. You think about going up that mountain, so you know that you have to be very dedicated to that. And of course, it's the accomplishment. So it's a great energy when we were talking about that first eclipse at the new moon with that massive stellium in Capricorn. What is your long range goal? What are you willing to do to work for it and to bring there? And how do you put a structure around that so you can work your way up there and accomplish it step by step? Okay, and I'm going to put up a postcard here for all the planets changing signs in case you didn't get that during the charts section of the video. But this is just so that you have that handy and you can reflect back and see where the planets are changing signs and when, including that huge Uranus turning direct on the eclipse. Big stuff happening. And so when we talk about everything in Capricorn, because we have so much there, we're going to have this bunch of conjunctions. So on December 27th, the sun is going to connect with lucky Jupiter. On January 2nd, Mercury is going to conjunct Jupiter. Then, of course, Jupiter connects with the South Node on the 8th as we get into that intense week. And then, of course, that that big conjunction is the biggest of them all, the Saturn-Pluto one, and that's, of course, Mercury's right in that mix, connecting with both of them, and then the very next day, Sun-Pluto. So when we talk about a conjunction, we magnify the energies of whatever sign that's happening in, and of course, Jupiter magnifies everything as well, adding to this big grouping of energies. So think about where you want to apply that, or get a copy of your chart and see what's going to be impacted, because it will fall somewhere in your particular chart, and you want to see how much this much Capricorn is going to impact what it's going to activate. And the other thing there that I was pointing out earlier is the trines to Uranus. As the planets go through the early degrees of Capricorn, they connect. And again, Uranus is huge. It can hit things, just give you that breakthrough in a way that you weren't expecting. It's also in Taurus, which is the physical, it's manifestation, it's work. It's just a tremendous amount of energy in earth signs. So you really want to think about where you want to apply this. Taurus, of course, deals with resources, finances. It's a Venus ruled, so it's what gives us pleasure in the material world. And for those of you wondering about a Saturn trine, we're not going to get that till the very end of the year, and it will be in Aquarius. So it's a combination of earth signs for building things and following through, very much a material aspect, a physical aspect to us. Now, let's get to the big kahuna here. Saturn, Pluto conjunct, meeting at the exact same spot 2 days after that massive eclipse. And so again, let's break them down. Let's look at what Saturn does. This is law and order. This is lessons, the old taskmaster he is, discipline, austerity, all the fun stuff. But again, when I say structure, sometimes it's just really good to know what the boundaries are, because you can plot a course. There's a lot of freedom in that, actually. It sounds contradictory, but if you know what your schedule is, like if you've been somebody looking for a job, once you get that structure in there, you're like, okay, now I know what time I can do these other things. So also the ruler of time, talking about, again, limitations. So us people thinking about what are we doing with our lives. This is reminding us, we all have a finite amount of time here. So what are we doing with it? Pluto. Biggest word to associate with Pluto is power. We have reform, we have destruction, we have the underworld. Pluto is not afraid to go to the deepest, darkest places. Again, that underworld. So this is crime syndicates, and it connects with Saturn in that way. Saturn being the law and order, but Pluto will look into the darkest places unafraid, because its job is to bring light to them, to reform, and to regenerate. So powerful, powerful combination when these two get together. I think for those of you who watch my videos, I'm not like a big trying to predict everything, because everything plays out one uniquely in your chart. That's why I'm saying get a copy of your chart, see what's in early degrees of Taurus, see what's in Capricorn, and then you'll see where to take advantage of these energies, or where they're going to give you a boost and a lift. That having been said, just even a quick Google search shows you so many people are vlogging about this big conjunction, and there's a lot of fear around it. I can't guarantee you that, there's not a crash in the market or something like that. We always have to see how things play out. Obviously, there's a lot to do with systems. There's a lot to do with money, business, government, all of those things. So there could be any number of possibilities. So a few of them that are thrown out there. Obviously, here in America, we have one side, they're ready for we're taking that side down, and the other side is ready to take the other side down. And you guys know I don't get political in these videos, so we're not going there. But this could be a big week on either side. It may play out in that way, because Capricorn, where all these planets are, does deal with governments, systems. Pluto is ruling out corruption. So who's ever been naughty, is probably going to be in trouble about now, or the hammer's going to come down. So we'll see. I kind of call it crime and punishment when Saturn and Pluto get together. This is, around these eclipses. I am going to, this is pure speculation, but I will throw out my best candidate for the one that we'll see in the news. I think we're going to have another iteration of the Jeffrey Epstein story, and I have 3 quick reasons for that. Number 1, Saturn and Pluto. You guys remember my blogs from last year? I'll put them in the description box. Saturn and Pluto have been opposing the North Node, which is of the moon. Cancer, the moon, they deal with children, child care, how we take care of children, how we protect them. Cancer has that shell. They've been dealing with those issues all throughout 2019. They've been bringing them up. I said something would come up with child sex trafficking back in April. I put that in my blog, and sure enough, I knew it would be around that eclipse in the middle of the year. So this is a matching eclipse. This is another extension of that eclipse. That one was only at 10 degrees. This one, it is at 20 degrees. So much stronger degree. The other reason I think something is coming up here around this is we're seeing that the story gets tentacles. Doesn't matter left or right politically. We're seeing that the Epstein thing does reach into the government, be it the local government in Florida, where officials just let this guy walk 10 years ago. More interestingly enough, there's a lot of journalism about this man's ties to other governments, and that this really was beyond this awful abuse of children, again, Pluto, abuse of children, that he had ties to other governments, and this was really a blackmail operation, and that's becoming kind of mainstream. And again, investigative journalists finding those ties and connections. Saudi passport, was it Mossad? All these things are sort of bubbling up as I'm recording on December 8th. So I think by the time we get to this eclipse, we're going to have another iteration of this story. The other setup, so there's Saturn and Pluto, who were poking the bear throughout 2019 when they were opposing that North Node and that moon energy, children, child care. Now we have the bookend eclipse, a stronger degree, further extension of that energy coming up. And the other one that we have is little old Mercury. Seems so innocuous, right? But its last retrograde was in Scorpio. It was digging up information. Of course, Scorpio is Pluto ruled. And so it, again, it's all that, the sex, the, darker things, nefarious things, really, just the awful side of the human psyche. So Mercury was digging in there, and there was a lot happening in the news that was more and more coming out about this story. But if you look back, the whole story, this man allegedly offing himself in the prison cell happened in July around the last eclipse. So again, that's my best pick for the story that's going to get a further push back out into the mainstream when we go through this period. So that's my speculative part. Again, we don't know how this is going to play out. So much to do with business and finance, systems, governments, all those things. Could be a breakthrough with the US and China on an economic deal, because Capricorn deals with the economy. And again, for the people who are saying, hey, no, this is bad news, man, it could be, a tough part of the market or some crack in the system happening. So we'll see how it plays out. I'll be back in a month. You'll be back in a month. But I lastly want to just remind you what I was saying at the end of part 1 on the charts is just have perspective. Look to Pisces, look to Sagittarius, look to Aquarius, to step back, look at the big picture, And as you're planning on things, this may end up being the most productive cycle. Again, if like a trade deal goes through, that's more jobs in America, higher wages. We're already seeing wages lift. So you may have an incredible opportunity coming in to create wealth, which is both Taurus and Capricorn. So again, try not to let everybody scare you. We'll see how it all plays out, but this could be one of the most productive years on the books, but it could also mean some shakeups. So let's see what happens. But those are the aspects coming in while the sun goes into Capricorn. And I want to talk to you about resources and the 2020 video that's coming out. All right, my goodness. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry for such a long one again, but it's such a big thing. People have been talking about it all year, the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So we'll see how that plays out. I am Elizabeth from Elizabeth's Oracle. Thank you so much for watching. All the links to everything are always in the description box. Feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I do just one video a month, and this year for the first time I'm going to do an overview for the coming year. I've been doing a lot of homework, so I will be posting a 2020 video and put the link in the description box. If you'd like a monthly reminder about the videos, you can either do the notification bell or sign up to my email list, and there are specials in there. There's an oracle message, and also when I do other media, there are links to that as well, and I put like the key date guides and just things that may be helpful to you as well in there. So would love to have you along for that. There's Free Minute Friday, always my special. If you guys book on a Friday, you get 5 minutes added to your order, and thank you so much for your support. And backtrack to the newsletter. If I'm running a special, you'll see it once a month in the newsletter, so that's another good reason to sign up for that. And this is just a good time to get a look ahead into the new year, so you can kind of check in with your aspirations and see how these planets are set up to work with your chart. And lastly, if you can't wait a month to get astrology news, I am running a column every week. It posts on Sundays on my website, elizabethsoracle.co. So just buzz on over there on Sunday, have a read. It's always in the right-hand column on a web browser, like if you're at a PC or you're using your laptop. If you have a device, just scroll down. That sidebar ends up at the bottom of the screen. But the new forecast, the weekly forecast, is always there on Sundays. I'm enjoying writing those. It's helping me keep up with the planets in more detail. So I hope you guys are enjoying those. And otherwise, I just want to wish you guys a really beautiful, peaceful, abundant holiday season and new year. All that Saturn Pluto eclipse stuff doesn't start happening until into January, and we do have a really nicely aspected Christmas holiday and solstice time. So I hope that those are really nice holidays for you on into the new year with some nice Jupiter trine. So enjoy those. We'll see how everything plays out, and I hope to see you back when the sun heads into Aquarius. Thank you again for watching.